start. Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. On the day before Christmas, when most businesses were closed, Ebenezer Scrooge was hard at work in his accounting office, a firm still known as Scrooge and Marley, even though Mr. Marley died long ago. The clerk, Bob Cratchit, wrote endless columns of numbers with frozen fingers, for Scrooge was so stingy that he wouldn't spare more than one measly piece of coal for the fire. Scrooge's nephew Fred gaily called, "Merry Christmas, Uncle," as he entered the office. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" "Come and dine with us tomorrow," Fred insisted. "No, and good afternoon to you. I'm busy," Scrooge rasped. Soon after, two men walked in and bowed pleasantly to Scrooge. "Sir," one of them said, "we are raising money for the poor who have nothing to eat and no place to live." "Are there no prisons?" Scrooge growled. "Are there no workhouses?" he shouted, dismissing the surprised men with a sharp wave of his hand. At closing time, Scrooge went home. On his door there was a large knocker. As he put his key in the lock, Scrooge saw the knocker change into Marley's face. Then, while he stared aghast, it became a knocker again. Shaken, Scrooge went in and ate his dinner alone. In the quiet, he heard a faint rattling of chains. The sound grew louder, and the ghost of his partner, Jacob Marley, appeared. "Is it you, Jacob?" cried Scrooge. "You're chained." "Yes," said the ghost. "I have come to forewarn you that you will be too unless you change. You will be haunted this very night by 3 spirits. Listen to them for your own sake, Ebenezer Scrooge." "I'm afraid," Scrooge gasped. But Marley was gone. Scrooge, now very shaken, went up to his bed and fell into an uneasy sleep. But he did not sleep for long. As the clock struck 1, Scrooge awoke to see a shining figure, the unearthly visitor Marley had foretold. "Who and what are you?" Scrooge demanded. "I am the ghost of Christmas past," said the spirit, and she took Scrooge to Christmases of years long gone. Scrooge saw Fezziwig, his old master, bringing happiness to the people who worked for him. Then he saw the girl he was to marry, bidding him farewell because his greed was too much for her to stand. "I cannot bear it," he cried. "Haunt me no more," he begged, and soon he was back in his bed, fast asleep. Again, Scrooge awoke to see his room much changed, with Christmas decorations of every kind and color. In the middle of the room stood a jolly giant of a ghost. "I am the ghost of Christmas present," he announced, and whisking Scrooge off to the Cratchit's house. There, Scrooge saw the family gathered around their meager feast. As they joined hands, their faces glowed with love and happiness. Beside Bob sat his crippled son, Tiny Tim, his crutch nearby his tiny chair. "Spirit," said Scrooge, "will Tiny Tim live?" "If nothing changes, the boy will not live," replied the ghost. "No, say he will be spared," cried Scrooge, overcome with sadness. But the spirit of Christmas present disappeared, and Scrooge saw a solemn, hooded phantom coming toward him. "Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? Asked Scrooge. The spirit merely pointed reluctantly. Scrooge followed him to the cemetery where Tiny Tim was buried. Scrooge hung his head in sorrow. Then a ghost led him to a neglected grave whose stone bore his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. No, spare it, he cried. I am not the man I was. I will honor Christmas in my heart and keep it all the year. He clutched at the phantom, but it melted away, and Scrooge found himself holding his own bedpost. Scrooge awoke filled with joy, in his own bed, in his own room. His heart leapt with thoughts of the future. The past was behind him. He would change. He would make amends. He would create a new life with generosity and goodwill. And best of all, he had the time to do it. Laughing and crying, he shouted, "I'm as happy as a schoolboy." He ran to his window and gleefully threw it open. "What's today?" he called to a boy passing below. "Why, it's Christmas Day," the surprised boy replied. "Hurrah, then I haven't missed it," shouted Scrooge. "Run to the butcher's, boy, and buy the biggest turkey hanging in the window." "I'll send it. Bob Cratchit's," he giggled to himself. "What a surprise it will be for them." Then Scrooge put on his best suit and went out into the street greeting everyone. He saw the man who had asked him for money and immediately took out his purse. "Please accept this," he said. "My dear sir," replied the man. "Thank you for—" "Please," said Scrooge, "don't say anything." Then, laden with gifts, balancing more presents than one man could carry, Scrooge arrived at his nephew's doorstep, where he knocked timidly on the door. "Fred, it's your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Does your invitation still stand?" "Of course it does," replied Fred. Scrooge was made to feel right at home. There was a wonderful party with much gaiety, warmth, and togetherness. The next day, Scrooge got to work early and watched the clock gleefully as Bob Cratchit arrived 18 minutes late. "You're late," said Scrooge. "Things have got to change, and so I am going to raise your salary." "Merry Christmas, Bob," he told the astonished clerk. "A merrier Christmas than I've given you for many a year." Scrooge became a second father to Tiny Tim, who lived. He became a good friend, a good master, and a good man. From then on, it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. And he always remembered the words of Tiny Tim, who said, "God bless us,